I'm counting down the minutes until Tumblr starts telling me that Saru is the next greatest sex symbol. Like, it's coming.
Welcome to the Freakcast. This time, we're going to be talking about Star Trek Discovery. I am Anita Sarkeesian, and I am joined by our wonderful operations director, Ebony.
Hey, everybody.
I finally got her on a thing with us. I'm so excited.
And it's because there's no camera.
One day we'll get her on camera.
No, I'm like the Phantom.
Anyways, so we are both Star Trek fans. We were apprehensively excited about the new Star Trek. It is the first Star Trek show in like a decade. This show, Star Trek Discovery, takes place 10 years before the original series, and it stars a woman of color.
Yay.
How cool is that?
It's great. It specifically stars a Black woman, so you knew I was all in, at least going into the show. Coming out, not so sure.
Totally different story. Yeah, I know. All right, well, let's just dive into it, because I think that we both, this was rough, right?
It was a roller coaster of emotions. As you said, we're both Star Trek fans, but I think, in terms of Star Trek fandom hierarchy, no one is going to confuse us for hardcore Star Trek PhDs, right? So
right.
we're bound to have a different reaction than maybe some other people. Also, we're very well accustomed to as we say, being critical of the media we love, and I kept that first and foremost in my brain as I watched this narrative unfold in front of me that seemed completely alien to me as a Star Trek fan. It felt tonally different. It felt visually very different. I didn't know what was happening, and it wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah. Okay, well, so let's set up the story really quick so that we're all on the same page.
Don't bother. I'm telling you right now, if you are a Star Trek fan, just go back and watch DS9, go back to TNG, watch the movies, whatever. But you can catch up on Discovery later. Just binge watch it later.
Way to leave Voyager out of that.
Yeah, deliberately.
Okay, so this story, again, I said it's set 10 years before the original series. You have a captain of a ship, the Shenzhou, thank you, who is a woman of color. You have a first officer that's a woman of color. Like, I'm already, you had me at hello, right? Like, I'm already super excited. The first scene opens up with them on a desert, and they're just being smart, right? Like, they're just smart motherfuckers just talking about science and math, and I'm like, this is rad. Like, I really enjoyed that, and was so excited to see intelligence celebrated on TV and not demonized or just really valued in this way that reminded me why I love Star Trek.
And what also this great mentorship relationship, because from the beginning we see this captain and her first officer, and we see the captain, played by Michelle Yeoh, just really advocate for Berman, her first officer, to recognize her own gifts, and that was awesome. It was nice not to have those kind of this listing of admirable qualities listed off by a white man. That felt really important to me, and so from the beginning I was like, yeah, this is gonna be great.
Yeah, oh totally. So we quickly learn that the ship encounters the Klingons. The Klingons are antagonists to the Federation at this point in our timeline. It's 2256 right now. We then learn that Michael, the first officer, her name confused the hell out of me for a while.
Tomboy privilege.
Yeah, right. We learn quickly that as a child, her parents were murdered by the Klingons, and that she went and lived on Vulcan with the Vulcans and was mentored by Sarek, who is Spock's father.
Okay, first of all, not happy with the casting of Sarek in this show. I don't know how we go from Ben Cross in the movies to this guy. And, I'm going to get in trouble because this dude, actually is a friend of a friend. So I'm about to hear about it. In fact, if anyone else has comments about my opinions at me at Ebony Aster. I am happy to ignore all of your tweets. So at Ebony Aster. But yeah, I just felt like
if you have opinions about my comments, send them to Ebony too.
Yeah, because I'm gonna ignore them all. But feel free, let's get a critical mass going. But yeah, the way in which we slowly see the unfolding of Burnham's history, so that, yeah, her parents were massacred by the Klingons. She's adopted into the Vulcan culture and Vulcan society. And so we see her in one of their school bubbles, like we saw baby Spock in the recent Star Trek movie when he was a kid. We also see her with Vulcan hair, which drove me absolutely bananas because I'm like, who on Vulcan is straightening that little girl's hair? But whatever, it was a choice they made, a choice I disagreed with. But
well, you had an interesting observation about the evolution of her hair within these 2 episodes.
Yeah, because her hair is straight for the duration of these 2 episodes, and it starts off in a very severe bob, that is a conscious call out to her recent Vulcan history, and then it becomes a bit softer, a bit more blown around throughout these episodes. And again, I'm like, what? We're in 2256. Black women still got to straighten their hair to get a job. Not into it, but at the end of the 2nd episode, when we see the trailers for what's going to be coming up in upcoming episodes, she's now gone back to a natural, and I think it was a very interesting choice visually because we're set up to see her as being, kind of emotionally detached, but as she becomes more in touch with her emotions, but perhaps also goes a bit more off the rails, her hair is curlier, it's texturized, it's more natural. And I just thought, like, there's something being said here, and I'm not too sure that I trust the people who are deploying this trope to wield it adequately.
Well,
but
and that goes directly into the representation of the Klingons, right? Which at first I was like, what are they doing with the aesthetics
what the
here?
fuck?
Right,
Seriously.
like, come on. So the representation of Klingons over Star Trek has always been a little questionable, right? Like we're diving into some deep, like, racist against, like, Africans territory
Asians,
here, right? Like,
natives. Yep.
Yeah, basically, like, all the brown people of the world. And this series and the costuming and the sort of prosthetics and the way that they look leaned in really hard into this sort of, like, savage, like, everything about them was this sort of, like, savagery that I was like, holy shit, like, this seems really super racist. Like, more so than I expected. From
savage
an alien race that is already, like, pretty the representation is already pretty racist.
Oh yeah, no, they totally leaned into it. And the thing is, the prosthetics, the makeup, the costuming, like, it was all visually gorgeous. It was wonderful to look at, but at the same time, it's hard not to see the full lips, the wide nostrils, the brown skin of these aliens as anything other than a representation of, like, this kind of noble brown warrior, like, racist trope as it exists on Earth,
totally.
Like, it just seemed completely ham-fisted, and it also seemed like a real big step back. I think there have been concerted efforts to make the Klingons more complex, more nuanced than they had been, in their kind of original incarnations. But this just seemed to be like, nope, we're going back to this kind of, like, savage, animalistic, primitive idea. Like, these people honestly seemed practically pre-civilizational.
Yeah, it was like, okay, so clearly the show is trying to deal with race, and so far it's awful. Like, there's this moment throughout the entire thing, First Officer Michael is saying these incredibly, like, racially essentialist comments about the Klingons. So she's like, oh, well,
but she's supposed to get a pass because she's a black woman.
Exactly, right? So, like, she's like, it's in their nature to be violent. They're, like, these horrible creatures. We need to shoot first, blah, 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 blah. And so for me, it really dampened the excitement I had about the casting of a woman of color, because I'm like, oh, you did this intentionally so that you could, like, air quotes, make complicated conversations about race, but really, you're just being fucking racist.
Yeah, I think they thought they were being pretty clever with it. I mean, I don't know how conscious the decision was or the equation was between like black women speaking these incredibly essentialist things equals, you know, we get a pass for saying that, but that's obviously what's happening, right?
Yeah.
And so to have people in the, you know, among the crew or in Starfleet, you know, kind of reckon with these things, but in this really, you know, simplistic way, felt like they hadn't earned the right to have those kind of conversations in the way that they had, because we just simply hadn't gotten to know the milieu of the narrative at that point. We hadn't really gotten to know the characters, and we weren't learning about them or learning good things about them based upon what was happening. And so it just seemed as if the story was going places we weren't quite ready for yet. Yeah, like these are incredibly important conversations to have, but not this quickly with these people that we don't know, because they don't have any chits yet.
Absolutely. And in like directly in line with that, you have this woman who is trying to had a failed mutiny. She attacked her first captain, who she's already developed this like really intense bond with, or like they've already at least shown that. And then she says something about like, well, the reason she committed the mutiny is because she believes that like Starfleet needed to attack the Klingons first as a show of strength, which is...
They need to give them the old Vulcan hello. Oh my God, so mad at what they did to the Vulcans. The way they construct the Vulcans in the universe, not happy with it. That's not who the Vulcans are. They are not shoot first, ask questions later. They are not kill them all and let God sort them out. That's not who the Vulcans are.
I know.
I was like, no. Like, is anyone involved in this show actually a Star Trek fan? Because this Battlestar Galactification of recent sci-fi properties, like, it's gotta be smarter than this.
I know.
You know, you don't just get to like rewrite who the Vulcans are.
Absolutely. And so you have this woman who mutinies because she wants to attack an alien, like without any real provocation, and she says that saving you was more important than Starfleet principles. And I'm sitting here going, what the fuck are you doing to Star Trek? Like, this is why we like Star Trek, is we like the exploration. We like the diplomacy aspect of it is so important to like my personal love of this franchise. Like, it's not a world without violence, but it is a world that values diplomacy over violence. And I think that that's critical. And from out the gate, you have this woman who's like, meh, nah, let's just shoot them. Let's just shoot all the aliens.
Yeah, and it was garbage. With like the implicit approval of her Vulcan mentor, Sarek, who spends all this time when they're mind melding, being like, you know, the way that you are is because of what the Vulcans have done to you. You need to reckon with this, etc. And then he tries to come back with, oh, but by the way, be careful that your past does not drive your assumptions. Yo, dude, you just let her there. You just told her like what she should do. You implicitly told her to give him the old Vulcan hello. Which, by the way, is going to be something I incorporate into my vocabulary, the Vulcan hello, because it sounds so badass.
It's so, the whole thing is so incredibly frustrating. And you're right, like, it does feel... You know, I was excited about having a new show because it'd been so long, and Enterprise can go fuck itself, because I'm not even going to pretend like that entire show existed. So all we got were these, like, the J.J. Abrams movies that I refused to watch after the first one, because I'm like, this is not Star Trek. This is not, like, blow them up in space kind of nonsense. And so this show, I think, is really leaning into that. It's leaning into the fact that they're about to be in war, and this is going to be a show about war.
Right.
And I think, you know, like, they have not given us any reason to trust them. Like, these writers have not at all given us, they've not given us reason to trust them. But I think what they're trying to do is set up this space where, you know, Michael's doing all of these emotional reactions, which is against her Vulcan training, to be like, you killed my parents, so we're going to attack you, and you're evil, and blah, blah, blah. And so she's eventually gonna learn and grow and, like, find complexity in the Klingons' way of life, potentially. Like, that... Like,
Yeah, but because the outlines have already been broadly sketched as to how we're supposed to view the Klingons, it does not matter at this point, or it matters less how they get shaded in, because those outlines are already drawn. Like, we're already supposed to view them as the enemy. And just to go back to your idea that the show is going to be about war and about, how we perpetuate it, how we wage it, what a justifiable war is, who the enemy is, etc. I find it incredibly disheartening on a personal level that we're in this cultural moment where we can't envision a time without war.
Yeah.
Part of what drew me to Star Trek and has kept me a fan is the vision, utopian, yes, but the vision of this like peaceful, largely peaceful, post-scarcity, just incredibly diverse future in which some of the mistakes of the past maybe haven't been put to bed, but are being actively worked through. And yeah, I get that this is an earlier iteration, right? Like this comes before, as you said, 10 years before the original series in the timeline. But nevertheless, what drew me to Star Trek and what keeps me in love with Star Trek is largely absent from this particular iteration of the show. And that just felt very sad to me, because while I love a gritty, dark, kind of very multi-layered science fiction property, in fact, DS9 is my favorite version of Star Trek, despite the fact that it is my favorite and I love talking about it, when it comes right down to it, I rewatch the original series and Next Generation more, just because there's something, affirming about both of them.
Yeah.
I choose not to recognize Voyager. Whatever.
Okay, so this is the ongoing battle in our office. Voyager's my favorite, obviously. I've talked about it extensively. Apparently, Ebony wants to pretend like that show never existed.
I just got nothing from that show. I mean, I won't lie. The reason why I initially didn't watch it is because, coming out of DS9, I was like, whatever. Who are these new people trying to, you can't sit with us, It was a very Mean Girls kind of reaction. But having gone back and watched several episodes, it's not that I hate the show or even dislike it. I just never felt like that magnetic pull the way that I did with other Star Trek properties.
Yeah, and I never finished DS9. I tried to watch that show 3 or 4 times, and I would get a couple seasons in and then just be like, ugh.
This is why we can't record. This is why we can't record in the same office, because we would come to blows for real.
Yeah, I think that these conversations and the things that we're drawn to and not drawn to, and is part of what makes this fandom so rich. And ultimately, I think you and I have very similar. I think we have similar expectations, and we're drawn to the Star Trek universe as a whole for the same reasons, or for at least for similar reasons, regardless of which property we like better than the other. And the thing about Star Trek Discovery is, it's missing a lot of that. It's missing a lot of that energy and that the exploration and the joy of a future world and aliens and new, just all the things that were not in this episode.
Yeah, and also, as much as I love the character of Lieutenant Burnham and as much as I love the actor playing that role, the fact is, it is kind of, it's hyper-focused on her deliberately. But part of what I come to Star Trek for also is the crew and the relationships that develop between the crew. And I don't see, just from the trailers, the way that they're going to grow the focus such that there are people I can connect with, on the crew, other than, Lieutenant Saru. I don't.
Who can sense the coming of death? That was his thing.
Yo,
what?
I'm not gonna ever say anything bad about Doug Jones. Doug Jones for life. That can do no wrong. But yeah. So
but who is the
kind of
crew gonna be?
collegiality? Yeah, exactly. Well, we're gonna get Lucius Malfoy, right? Yes, definitely. Give that guy more work. He should always be in everything.
Yes.
But also there's no family there, for lack of a better word. And the family, as small as it was, that did exist between Captain Georgiou and, Lieutenant Burnham has been broken, right? Like,
Yeah.
Georgiou dies, and now Burnham's gonna be make her way to the Discovery. So that's another thing that I'm missing. I will say this, you and I have talked about this before, and about like your reticence to keep watching. I'm excited to keep watching because I have hope that it's gonna get better, but man, I was disappointed at the end of these first two episodes. I was way disappointed.
Yeah, and like, okay, so this is from the coming up next kind of thing at the end of the second episode. Malfoy has this ship, and he's going to give Michael a chance because she's being thrown in jail for mutiny for life. And he's going to give her a chance even though everyone tells him not to, and that's where we're going. So we don't actually this whole like white dude giving this black woman a chance is kind of gross to me. Like, not gross, but like, you're setting up all of these racial tensions. Like, why do you got to make the white dudes in charge here?
Right.
And then also having
it's CBS.
It's so CBS. Holy moly. And then also having you're talking about the crew is the heart of a show, right? Every single Star Trek show, that is the heart of the show. So who is the crew going to be? And why did you have 2 episodes where you basically set us up with some people that we don't care about, and then you're going to set us up with totally new people? Like, is Saru even going to come onto the new crew?
I think so. I think so. I think I spotted him in one of the trailers. And as I mentioned to you, like, I'm counting down the minutes until Tumblr starts telling me that Saru is the next greatest sex symbol. Like, it's coming. And I'm so ready to be grossed out by that shit. But other than that, like, I don't feel as if,
Tumblr.
I'm not. I don't see how we're going to become invested, but I've only seen 2 episodes, so I'm ready to discover that. But, and I'm not going to stop watching. Sonequa Martin Green is amazing. She does amazing work. I'm looking forward to the ways in which we see her do more, but man, they're going to have to give her something better to work with.
I know.
So much better.
All right, yeah, I don't well, I'm going to keep watching. I got to admit, I don't know if I would keep watching it if we weren't doing this podcast, but I am going to keep watching it so that every week we can come and have these conversations about what's working and what's not to our beloved franchise. What else you got?
I have quite a bit. I took notes I took pages of notes. I think the one thing that if you want to know, in essence, what this show is going to be doing, you have to look no further than the scene where that injured crewman makes his way to the brig.
Oh my God, right.
to talk to Lieutenant Burnham, and he asked the very good question: what the fuck are we doing? We're not soldiers. We're Starfleet. And his ass immediately gets blown out into space. I fell off my couch. I was laughing so hard. That is the show telling us there's no space for that wide-eyed kind of optimism, kind of utopian vision. This is going to be about fighting. This is going to be about war. This is the Federation before like the rough edges have been smoothed out. Oh my God, I hollered so much at that. Whoever was responsible for that scene, kudos.
Yeah, well, I did love, so shortly thereafter, Sarek comes, like, mind melds over distances with her and has a little pep talk, and then she logicked the computer. Like,
so funny.
I was dying.
Good.
I was like, I actually really loved that, where, like, the computer, the AI is smart enough to be able to, like, it's Star Trek. It's smart enough to be able to, like, manipulate, like, have a conversation with you and react in real time to what you're saying. And she just, like, logicked the fuck out of it to get it to shoot her across, like, a chasm in space. And you're like, all right, cool. Like, more of that, please. I like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, what?
Nothing. We'll get into it in subsequent episodes. Like, I seriously, I got tabs and tabs of notes just on these 2 episodes. I fully expect that each episode is going to deliver so much for us to talk about. But one of the things I want to get into, you know, as we go through this season, is the fact that this is a CBS property. Like, there's no way in which this version of Star Trek is not intimately tied to the way in which we're watching it, right? Like, this show would be different if it was on HBO, if it was on Netflix, if it was on FX, whatever, you know, like, this is definitely a CBS property, and they want you to know that. Like, if you're watching the show and you're seeing the commercials for things like Navy SEALs, Wisdom of the Crowd,
God.
You know, like,
Young Sheldon. The
oh
fuck
my God.
is that?
Fuck that show.
I haven't watched commercials in a really long time, and it was brutal. Like, it was
listen to you.
Brutal. I just can't do it. I hate commercials. But the other thing, you're right. Like, CBS is notoriously conservative. It is known for that. And you know, they aired it specifically on this day, the first episode, and then the second episode went on their CBS All Access online subscription service and I feel like, and so the rest of the show is going to be on their subscription service. It's not airing on TV.
Right.
And so I feel like they specifically are counting on, like, Star Trek fans to bolster their new platform, which just...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, I would not do it if
they'll do it. They'll do it. We're going to do it. Like, I have signed up for CBS All Access. Mission accomplished. Y'all got me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be watching this shit. But I do resent the fact that I'm watching a CBS Star Trek property when I could have something else.
Yeah.
Because this is the kind of Star Trek that you get from a network that also gives you the Big Bang Theory. Like, like these are two pieces, you know, of the same pie. Absolutely.
I wonder if there's any space at all in the future of the Star Trek franchise being given elsewhere. You know, like you're saying, having it be on HBO or Netflix or like any not even subscription services, like any other network, like it would be so different. And I wonder if CBS would ever give it up. Like if there's
not likely.
Yeah. And that's, I feel like we're just, we'll see how it goes, but I'm preparing to be continually disappointed.
But in an entertaining way.
I don't know about that. More like a throwing popcorn at the TV sort of way.
I will enjoy it enough for the both of us. Also, can't say it enough. I'm happy that Sonequa Martin Green is getting those checks. Get those checks, girl.
All right. On that note, thanks for joining us. We will be doing this every week for the remainder of this season. So join us. Subscribe on all of our net channels, at FemFreak on everything. You know where to find us.
Continue to hit me up at Ebony Aster, where I will ignore your comments.
Oh my God.
Week on week.
But we actually do want to hear what you think if you are a nice human. So feel free to message us and tell us what you think about our newly founded podcast recaps. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you next week.
Bye.